Ted Cruz, troop withdrawals, and a not-so-One Direction. This is the Weekend Readout. Hey everybody, I'm Drexel and welcome to the Weekend Readout, the show that recaps important stories in politics, pop culture, and anything else we've been paying attention to from the week. So, let's read it out. In the tweet seen around the world, the junior senator from Texas, Ted Cruz, announced his intentions to seek the Republican nomination for president. Now, anyone that knows me knows that this is my favorite season, presidential primary season, so forgive me when I nerd out just a little bit throughout this entire process. Like you, I'll have my favorites, but I'll definitely try to be as fair and as balanced as I can. So, Ted Cruz, or rather Raphael Edward Cruz, let's just get some of the dumb stuff out of the way first. He was born in Canada. Yes. A, who cares? But B, if you really care, his mom is an American citizen. His Cuban dad was a legal resident. He has a Canadian citizenship and denounced that back in 2013. For anyone making a claim about his eligibility, Donald Trump, don't. It's not worth your breath. I don't know why anyone takes Donald Trump seriously anyways. So, let's get to the real Ted Cruz and the battle he'll have to convince America he's the most qualified person to be number 45. First off, he launched this week's Imagine campaign at the required weekly convocation at the Christian Liberty University, giving his best evangelical speech. Now, none of those students you saw looked like they wanted to be there. They pulled a Marshawn Lynch and were there, so they just didn't get fined. Secondly, they're all young and intelligent, I hope, so I'm sure they know a few things about how unelectable Senator Cruz is, but in case they don't, let's break down a few things. In 2013, he led a failed Republican effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act, all but threatening to shut down the government if it didn't happen. He wants to cut corporate tax rates to 15%. 15! That's lower than what I pay in taxes, and billion-dollar businesses can actually afford that. On top of that, he wants to abolish the very department that would enforce that tax rate. He's working very hard to rail against the very system that has given him and his family the American dream, opposing any serious efforts to improve our immigration system. He voted no on the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act and has been passed with bipartisan support every Congress since 1994. And even up until last week on Late Night with Seth Meyers, he still doesn't believe in climate change. And this man is the chairman of the Senate Subcommittee on Space, Science, and Competition. In my very fair, balanced, and humble opinion, there's no way that Ted Cruz makes it out of the Republican primary. The party wants to win. Republican candidates have not won the popular vote in America in the last 5 of 6 elections, and they certainly don't want to be embarrassed in the general election by choosing a guy who read Green Eggs and Ham on the Senate floor. Sorry, Teddy. You're bad for the party, you're bad for the country. Now I predict Rand Paul is about to tee up his campaign next. Also this week, President Obama announced an agreement with Afghanistan President Ashraf Ghani to keep current troop levels in the region at numbers higher than we expected. Now during his 2012 campaign, the president promised to bring down troop levels as our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan have dwindled. Currently, there are less than 10,000 troops left in the country, and the White House only originally planned to keep around 5,000 troops in the country by the end of this year, with a complete withdrawal by the end of 2016. Now, the new agreement this week will keep all 9,800 troops in the region through the end of the year for training and support purposes. Maybe this is where the additional $20 million the Defense Department didn't ask for is going. That's pretty doubtful. For those thinking, well, the president withdrew troops from Iraq, why not just completely remove them from Afghanistan? Well, it's like this. Iraq didn't want us there. They never wanted us there. They just liked the money and resources we used to rebuild their nation. This is why they didn't renew the U.S.-Iraq Status of Forces Agreement in 2011. One thing that we have to remember is that American troops cannot just occupy a sovereign nation. It doesn't work like that. Would you want another nation setting up camp in your town for an unprecedented amount of time with no real clear objective? I don't think so. Now, thanks to ISIL, we're back in Iraq anyway. But I digress, though. Afghanistan took the opposite approach Iraq did and said, hey, we really need you to ride this out with us. Can you just stay a little bit longer and help us out? This is the kind of agreement that makes sense. Simple request, for the sake of a long-term strategy. This is an agreement that both sides argue will make the 14-year war in Afghanistan worth the time, money, and American lives we've lost. The Afghanis want peace and stability and protection. Personally, right now, I don't know how much peace in the Middle East they're going to get, but we should be content knowing that we have partners in the region that are willing to cooperate. Now, on a lighter note, or a sadder note, well, it was sad for a lot of people, boy bander Zayn Malik, well, I don't know his name, from One Direction decided to go his own direction and quit the group this week after leaving their Asia tour over the weekend. He just up and quit. No warning, no fanfare, no tweet, giving tweens and grown women and some men a moment to let it sink in first. After word got out, Zayn posted on the group's Facebook page saying, "I'd like to apologize to the fans if I've let anyone down, but I have to do what feels right in my heart. I'm leaving because I want to be a normal 22-year-old who is able to relax and have some private time out of the spotlight." But here's the bigger picture with this. This was a kid who literally had the life most 22-year-olds wish they had. The girls, the fame, the money. Now out here in Los Angeles and a little in New York, in the industry, most people just want to be famous. They want to be known for something. Malik basically said, "I have had enough of all of that for a lifetime." How many of us would trade that in for a normal life? Now you may say, but he didn't have to be in that band. Well, yes, and now he's not. Now I grew up in the theater, I've done a few things here and there, and most people I've met and worked with are true artists. They are about their craft. They love the work. They get cast based on talent, not just looks. It's work first. Most young celebrities now people get obsessed with, they're not that. They're hot fame seekers. Sometimes having it all just comes with a price. And as Professor Snape once said, clearly fame isn't everything. Good luck to Zion. Now, I always like to know what you guys are thinking, whether or not it's your favorite BuzzFeed article, your thoughts about Hillary Clinton's emails, or comments about topics on the show. So every once in a while, I'll pose a question on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram to get your thoughts, and I'll comment with them on my thoughts. I'll call this the Reach Out. This week's question was, with the 2016 election starting up, what hot button issues are you most interested in? Nicholas says, repeal the Patriot Act and Citizens United, and maximum term limits for Congress and the House. Hashtag like that will ever happen. The repeal of part of the Patriot Act that most people have the most problems with is the spying on American citizens, and it actually may be closer to happening sooner rather than later. Two bipartisan congressmen have introduced a bill this week to repeal the NSA spying methods. Hopefully the president will sign the legislation if it gets passed. Now, Citizens United was one of the worst decisions in Supreme Court history. This next election coming up alone, candidates are expected to spend over $1 billion total. Most of that money from both sides is coming from deep pockets who just want influence in the White House. We should be mindful of where our candidates are getting their donations from. Now, I'm also a fan of term limits for Congresspeople. There are some people who've just been serving for decades, and I'm always about representation maybe for 2 or 3 terms. That's really all the time they need in Congress. Thanks to all the awesome responses to the question. I've got a lot of opinions on all the things that you guys talked about this week. Hopefully our 2016 candidates will be able to address some of those issues you guys talked about. Be on the lookout for the next question of the week. As always, every week I won't be able to get to a lot of the topics I want to talk about, but surely we'll point out the things that you may have missed in this week's Not to Mention. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld strict voter ID legislation in Wisconsin signed by Governor Scott Walker. At the same time, they threw out a lower court's ruling in Alabama that upheld controversial redistricting plan. Indiana Governor Mike Pence signed a controversial religious freedom bill. U.S. Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl is being charged with desertion. Mulder and Scully are coming back in a 6-episode X-Files return. And the Pretty Little Liars were in a shock this week when their 5-year fandom came to a halt in a shockingly non-reveal. A actually stands for another time. Sorry, Little Liars. Now, like I mentioned, every week I'll try to pick compelling stories that can make us think beyond ourselves and can drive a conversation. I'll always need your help in making sure that we grow together. The 2016 elections are just around the corner, and whether it's politics or pop culture, we all have a stake in what kinds of things that will make it into our homes. So stay motivated, stay informed, and stay connected. Don't forget to like the Facebook page, facebook.com/theweekendreadout, and check out my blog, thereadout365.com, and I'll see you next week. Did you like that episode? Make sure to share with your friends, family, neighbors, all across social media. Don't forget to subscribe and join me here every Saturday right here on the Weekend Readout.